Low supply, strong demand, and an influx of AI money are pushing San Mateo County home prices through the roof. Even with mortgage rates still at around 6%, luxury sales are soaring, and San Mateo County has just achieved something remarkable. Its highest Q3 median home price ever at a little under $2 million, $1.93 million. And here's what's crazy. This is happening with mortgage rates, as you already know, still stuck over 6%. And while a bunch of other markets in the Bay Area are struggling, San Mateo County luxury home sales in September were up a whopping 39% over a year ago. So today, I'm going to tell you what is fueling this and how to be successful if you're buying or selling a home in this market. For more data-driven San Mateo County real estate market insights, come join me every Monday at 5 p.m. for a new video. All right, so some key points that I think are worth mentioning around this record-breaking data that we're seeing. Okay, so median home price, the highest ever, that's up 1.5 points from last year. Again, not crazy, but still the highest we've ever seen. 6.3%-ish mortgage rates, which have basically remained the same for the last couple months. And then the luxury market has exploded compared to a year ago. So through the end of September, the amount of sales that we've had countywide over $5 million is up 39% from September 2024. That's pretty meaningful data. I don't think we've seen any of that for a while. And San Mateo County ranks number 2 in Bay Area luxury sales, behind only Santa Clara County, which is not surprising. So this year we've had 209 sales in San Mateo County and 348 in Santa Clara County. Now, another thing that's interesting is the condo market has been struggling. So that's down about 8% from a year ago, which is very fascinating. If you've watched some of my other videos, you've heard me talk about condos. Prices are basically down about 1 to 2% over the last 4 or 5 years, while home prices are hitting records. So if you're thinking about buying a condo, make sure you're doing it for the right reasons, because right now values are remaining flat. All right, so you might be wondering, you're reading the news, like what is happening with the effect of AI on real estate here in San Mateo County? I'm seeing a lot of this firsthand. So let's just start with the basics that you probably already know. Stock market at all-time high. That is creating massive wealth for anyone who's working in sectors like big tech. Has done extremely well, and we'll get a little bit more into that in a sec. But when we think about the San Mateo County demographics, I just saw some data that Compass had put out, which I thought was very fascinating that I want to share with you. So 36% of people living in San Mateo County are foreign-born and highly educated, and about 24.9% hold graduate or professional degrees. That is very impressive, especially when you compare that to many places outside the Bay Area. Now, if we kind of take a look at household income leaders, Atherton leads the way with the median household income of $620,000, Hillsborough $523,000, Portola Valley at $482,000. And then in some areas that are still very expensive, like Burlingame, $237,000, Redwood City, $224,000. But this is representative of median, right? So that's the halfway point. So you have half of the people earning substantially more than that, and half are earning less than that. So do we have issues here? Absolutely. But when we look at who's buying, the bucket that buyers have now is deeper than it's ever been in the past in relation to the sales price. And by the past, I mean in the last few years, just from the people that I've been talking to in the last few months who have received a lot more liquidity because of the companies where they work, I think that's very interesting. I think we're going to continue to see a lot of pressure in the northern part of the peninsula with the AI boom, especially because we're right in the middle between San Francisco's startup boom with AI and all the tech giants down in Silicon Valley. We have Anthropic, we have OpenAI. There's a lot of startups in San Francisco, specifically in the AI space. I have some clients who I'm working with at the moment who one of them works at OpenAI. And if you've read the news recently, OpenAI has allowed their employees to sell close to $10 billion in stock on the secondary market. And many of those people are first-time buyers wanting to buy homes at $3, $4, $5 million. And so that is not the profile buyer that we saw necessarily in the past. But because so many of these buyers are on the younger side, that's making the market a lot more competitive. I have another client who has been at Oracle for a really long time, and Oracle stock has gone through the roof in the last few years. And that client ended up buying something at a very high price point. I have another client whose parent has worked at NVIDIA for over 10 years, and their stock has also gone through the roof. And so a lot of these things that, people, right place, right time. And of course, there's a certain amount of luck with everything, but just the amount of wealth that's being created It's unlike anything that I've ever seen in the housing market. I remember 2008, 2009, which was the housing crisis. Remember kind of 2020, 2021 with COVID, where the market went through the roof. But if I were to offer a prediction for what I'm experiencing now, and as we record this, we're getting into Q4 2025, I think we're going to see a lot of appreciation happen in the next like 3 to 9 months. And that's not necessarily across the board. That's just going to be for the best properties, which typically my clients are drawn to the most expensive ones, the ones with the best locations in the best condition with the best floor plan. Now, it is kind of hard to always get everything you want. I like to sometimes think about the triangle of real estate, which is location, condition, and price. And you could add something else in there like floor plans. So it's really hard to get like the best floor plan and the best price and the best condition. If you get all three of those, you're going to be a very high price point. So kind of the lower that you go in there, maybe you're going to only get one or two of those things. But that's something as a buyer to kind of keep in mind. So if you're wondering which specific peninsula city or town is best for you, I've created really detailed insider guides and videos that you just can't find anywhere else. So this has neighborhood by neighborhood price analysis, walkability scores, commute times to major employers, hidden gems, and from my perspective, what I think locals like you actually think about living there. The website is in the description below. Now, why do I think we're going to see all this appreciation? Part of it has to do with the supply. So 2023 had the fewest number of sales in San Mateo County of any year that we've been recording data for the last 25 years. And this kind of tracked with nationally what we were seeing. 2024 was the second fewest number of sales. We are on track right now. We're slightly above last year, but we're still historically low. As of right now, there's 882 homes for sale in San Mateo County. You know, we have seen a little bit of a surge of new listings since September. So we saw almost 10% increase in new listings over the last year. And the other interesting thing is that 48% of properties are still selling over the asking price. This is down from about 58% last year, but it's still very strong. And I think we're seeing a little bit of a shift towards the more sought after real estate. And that's where more people are writing more offers. I had a listing that just sold a couple weeks ago in Burlingame that we're asking $1.6 million. I thought maybe it would land around 2 million or low twos, ended up selling for 2.7 million. I've had several other listings that have had outcomes like that. Part of it is we prepared the homes very well compared to others that were on the market. Of course, there's a little luck involved, but ultimately what I'm seeing is, and that again, this is not every property, so I don't want you watching this saying, oh my God, every property is selling $1 million over asking. That's not the case. But I'd say a majority of the homes that my clients are writing on, probably 80 to 90%, is competitive. There are multiple offers on those homes. Around average days on market, this year, countywide, we're at 37 days, which is slightly up from 29. But I'd say most properties, if you're a buyer, you could expect to see them sell within 1 to 2 weeks if it's competitive. Now, if we take a look at this chart here, which kind of displays how many listings are for sale, you can kind of see the trend that we've been experiencing over the last few months. A little bit of this is seasonal. And then if we take a look at number of new listings, which is interesting because active listings are how many are for sale at any moment. You typically coming out of the summer, we have a higher number of active listings and we start to see some price adjustments coupled with a lot of new listings coming to the market, which you can kind of see here. But what's interesting is with 66% of the active listings being single family homes, at the moment, there's 882 homes for sale in San Mateo County. That's not a lot when you think about we have about 740,000 people in the county, less than 1,000 homes for sale. That's less than a couple percent. That's not a lot. All right, so now let's talk about what we're seeing in the luxury market. So in Q3, we've had 64 sales of over $5 million, which is an increase of 10% year over year, despite having a little bit of a seasonal dip from Q2. Year to date, though, we've had 209 luxury sales, which is only second to Santa Clara County, but we're still up 39% over a year ago. For what I'm experiencing on the ground, just writing offers, and for what my clients are looking at, I do feel that data is reflected in what I'm seeing. I think if you're a buyer, the main takeaway here is if you see the right property at the right price, move quickly. Be patient. You know, I wish all of my clients who can afford to buy these homes at several $1 million or at any price point could just write a check and buy them. But we do have to have a little patience. So if you see something, move quickly. So if you're thinking about buying a home more than $10 million, we've only had 45 sales in the county year to date, which is the most in the whole Bay Area. So not surprising because San Mateo County is the most expensive of the 9 counties that we have here. So if we look at a couple seasonal trends, we can see that we've had 17% more price reductions from the same period last year. But again, that's kind of common. Usually in the spring, we see a lot of homes come on the market, and then they just were too ambitiously priced. And people are like, oh, I'm going to ask this big number, but no, I don't get it. I have several clients I'm working with right now whose homes were on the market earlier in the spring, and they had different representation, and a lot of it had to do with price. It had to do with presentation of the home. So we're kind of changing things up a little bit. We'll come back out at a more attractive price, but that's not unusual to start to see that at the end of the year for people who are motivated to sell. And now let's just take a look here at how many buyers are overbidding, meaning how many buyers are paying more than the asking price. The way we can see that is just by looking at the data for home selling over the asking price, which I think is very interesting. Now, if you're thinking, how do I even compete in a market where more than half of the homes are selling over the asking price? Give me a call. I've helped hundreds of buyers win in multiple offer situations. So if you're serious about buying on the peninsula and you want to understand exactly how to position yourself to win, let's talk about your specific situation. So if you're curious, what is the median price per square foot in San Mateo County? Obviously, this is a blended number, but it's $11.52, which is even higher than the Santa Clara median average, which is $11.28. Obviously, for this video, I'm kind of comparing a little bit between San Mateo and Santa Clara counties, which I don't do often, but because we're kind of talking about a market update and AI, I thought that would be interesting to share with you. So what are some economic factors that I think are influencing things? So we've talked about the stock market. We've talked about the effects of some of the local companies on a lot more liquidity, where RSUs have become a lot more valuable to people. The Fed did cut rates by 0.25% in September. That was the first cut that they've done all year. I think it's likely that we could see some more cuts before the end of the year. Inflation is a little bit higher. In the beginning of the year, it was about 2.4%. Now we're at about 2.9%. So, not a huge deal. And I'm sure we'd love to have it a little bit lower, but we're seeing appreciation of significantly more than that. I just had a call last night with some folks who had their home on the market a couple years ago. And when I looked back at my notes, the number that they had shared with me then, that number was too ambitious. But even 2 years later now, I'm like, you know what? I think that number is actually pretty realistic. I think they can get very close to that when we put their home on the market in the first quarter of next year. All right, so what does all this mean? If you're a home buyer, I think you can expect to see very, very strong competition in the $2 to $5 million range. Most of the homes I'm selling are very competitive. About 30% of transactions in the higher end markets like Burlingame and Hillsborough are cash. And I've written offers in the last month in the $5-6 million range, in the $1.5 million range that were cash. Typically, you would expect it to be at the higher end of the range, but I'm seeing so much savings that has been sitting on the sidelines that people are now deploying. So if you're like most people and you're normal and you're just getting a loan, don't despair, okay? But the main thing is you want to make sure that you're not just pre-approved, but that you've gone through something called conditional underwriting approval. So check out the link in the notes where you can see my deep dive all about what is the difference between pre-qualification, pre-approval, conditional underwriting approval, and full approval. But you want to go for step 3, which is the conditional underwriting approval, especially if you're going to be competing with cash. If you see something that looks compelling, move fast. The best homes are only on the market typically from 7 to 10 days. And then for overbidding, you might, be prepared at all price points. You could be spending $100,000 over asking, up to $500,000 or more. It really just depends on the price point and how underpriced the property is. So if you're thinking about selling your home, I would argue that the timing that we're seeing now is better than it's been at any point in the last 24 months. I think in the winter and spring, it's going to be equally strong, if not stronger. So make sure that you have an attractive asking price. Make sure that your home is properly prepared for the market so it looks its best visually, and there's no objections in the condition of the home for buyers. So try to take care of as much as you can. And if you're watching this, if you're thinking about buying and selling at the same time, there's a lot that you can do to prepare your home way before, because you might not know when you're going to buy. You might say, look, I could buy something in December of this year. I got to buy something in April next year. But if you can prepare your home in advance, that's going to help put you in a much stronger position. If you buy first, you're not owning 2 homes at the same time in earthquake country. That gives people a lot of anxiety. So if we can, you want to do as much as possible to line that up early on. You can do the marketing, you can get the inspections done. There's a lot of things you can do to kind of save yourself like 4 to 8 weeks on the back end. And if you're a seller watching this and you're thinking, is my home part of this kind of luxury increase in pricing, or how should I price in this particular market? The answer is it depends. So give me a shout. We can talk about what homes like yours are actually selling for right now, not what the Zillow's estimate says, but real data from real closed transactions. All right, so what do I expect moving forward? I think we're going to see some really solid appreciation in the next few months. The boom in AI is showing no signs of slowing down. I feel like every Time I open the San Francisco Business Times or the Wall Street Journal on my phone, which I read all the time, it's like XYZ company in the Bay Area has done XYZ deal. So is there froth in the marketplace? There probably is. There probably is some of that, but I think a lot of this is real. And regardless of whether it's froth or not, it's creating a lot of wealth downstream for many employees who work at this company, which does have an effect on our real estate market. Let me give you one example. Like we think about a town, let's say like Burlingame. Burlingame had 170 homes sell last year, 6,200 in the whole town. If you say that 170, how many sell in 1 month? That could be between 10 and 15 sales per month. What does it take to move the market? If you have, let's say, 2 or 3 families or couples or individuals who work at OpenAI, like, you know what, I'd like to buy a home in Burlingame. Just 2 or 3 new buyers into the marketplace who weren't there 12 months ago, that's going to push pressure on the market and push prices up. Now, if we say that with Oracle or Apple or Google, which Google just emerged a little less unscathed than people thought with the antitrust situation. So I think there's a lot of moving parts there, but just kind of, if we break it down, it's really not that complicated. So if you're thinking about making a move at some point in the next few months or later next year, anywhere within San Mateo County, I'd love to be your Peninsula real estate resource of choice. So drop me a line, give me a call, shoot me an email, and I look forward to seeing you guys on the next video.